The large meeting room buzzed with noise as alien beings from 12 different worlds gathered together. They all believed they were about to watch the humans give up and surrender. The war had been going on for 3 long years, and the human ships kept running away from big fights. It looked like the humans were losing badly against the much larger alien fleets and their better weapons. Admiral Jake Morrison sat at the human table. His face was old and marked with lines from years of hard work, but he showed no feelings. As the tall, insect-like Zephyrian ambassador Clickstar read out a long list of things the aliens wanted from humanity. The aliens wanted all humans to leave the outer space territories, destroy all their military bases outside the Earth solar system, and pay rare metals to the aliens for the next 100 years. These demands are fair when you think about how your people have been spreading out and taking over space, said the snake-like Vorthek representative with a mean hiss. Your simple warships cannot fight against our combined fleets. You should accept that you lost with whatever pride your kind still has. Morrison's helper, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Parker, watched her boss closely. She had worked with Morrison for 8 years and knew all his small signs. She saw his jaw muscles get tight, which meant he was getting angry but trying to hide it. Morrison was not the type of man who would give up easily. He was the type who would find a way to win even when things looked impossible. We need time to think about these suggestions, Morrison said in a calm, steady voice. Give us 48 hours to talk with Earth Command. The alien representatives looked at each other with expressions that clearly showed they thought they had already won. The crystal-like Hegemon's representative made a sound that the translation machines said was laughter. Fine, Admiral, 2 of your Earth days. But remember this, these demands will become much worse if you wait any longer. The meeting room was huge, built to hold representatives from many different alien species. The walls were made of a strange metal that changed colors, and the ceiling was so high it seemed to disappear into darkness. Each alien group had their own section with special seats and breathing equipment for their different body types. Morrison looked around the room and saw how the aliens had arranged themselves. The strongest military powers sat in the front, closest to the human table. The Zephyrians with their hard-shell bodies and 4 arms. The Vorthaks with their long, flexible bodies and poisonous fangs. The crystalline hegemon beings that looked like walking diamonds with glowing cores. Behind them sat the smaller species that had joined the alliance hoping to get some benefits from defeating humanity. Lisa Parker noticed something that made her stomach feel tight with worry. Every alien in the room was staring at the humans with the same look, the look of predators watching wounded prey. They had already decided that humanity was finished. They were just going through the motions of these talks to make themselves feel better about what they planned to do. Admiral, Lisa whispered quietly, the Kethmer delegation just arrived. They brought their entire military council. Morrison nodded slightly. The Kethmer were known for their 12 heavily defended worlds and their crystal cities that could be seen from space. If they brought their military leaders to what was supposed to be a peace talk, it meant they were planning something big. The afternoon session was even worse than the morning. More aliens arrived, and each group added their own demands to the growing list. The Void Runners wanted human colonies in the Spiral Arm. The Plasma Weavers claimed 3 human mining worlds. The Shell Builders demanded that humans destroy their space stations and never build new ones without alien permission. Your species has been a problem since you first left your homeworld, said the Void Runner captain, his tentacles waving angrily. You build wherever you want, take whatever resources you find, and act like you own the galaxy. It is time someone taught you proper behavior. Morrison sat quietly through all of this, taking notes on a simple paper pad instead of using electronic devices. Lisa watched him write, wondering what he was thinking. She had seen him in many difficult situations before, but never anything like this. The entire galaxy seemed to have united against humanity, and the odds looked impossible during a break. In the talks, Morrison and Lisa walked to a quiet corner of the room. The Admiral looked tired, but there was something in his eyes that made Lisa feel a little bit better. Sir, are we really in as much trouble as it looks? She asked quietly. Morrison looked at her for a long moment, then glanced around to make sure no aliens were listening. Lisa, sometimes the best way to win a game is to let your opponent think they're winning until the very end. Before she could ask what he meant, the aliens called for the talks to continue. The rest of the day brought more demands, more threats, and more proof that the aliens thought humanity was completely defeated. As the meeting finally ended for the day, Morrison stood up slowly. Every alien eye in the room followed his movement. He looked tired and beaten, exactly what they expected to see. "We will give you our answer tomorrow," Morrison said to the assembled aliens. "Thank you for your patience." The aliens made various sounds that the translators interpreted as satisfaction and amusement. They were clearly enjoying watching what they thought was humanity's final humiliation. As the humans left the meeting room, Lisa heard one of the Zephyrians say to another, "Tomorrow we will own their entire species. They have no choice but to accept our terms." Walking back to their ship, Lisa could not shake the feeling that something important was about to happen. Morrison had been too calm, too controlled. After 8 years of working with him, she knew that look in his eyes. It was not the look of a man who had given up. It was the look of a man who was about to spring a trap. 47 hours later, Morrison walked back into the huge meeting room. This time, even more aliens had come to watch. Word had spread across the galaxy that the humans would finally surrender today. Representatives from 20 different species filled every seat, and some even stood along the walls to get a good view. The room felt different now. There was an excited energy in the air, like the feeling before a big celebration. The aliens whispered to each other in their strange languages, making sounds like clicking, buzzing, and chirping. The translation machines worked overtime to keep up with all the conversations. Morrison walked slowly to the human table. He wore his best military uniform, dark blue with shiny buttons and medals from old battles. Lisa Parker followed close behind him, carrying a simple briefcase. She looked nervous, but Morrison's face showed nothing at all. The Zephyrian ambassador Clickstar stood up, his forearms spread wide like he was welcoming Morrison to his own defeat. "Admiral Morrison, we are pleased that you have returned to accept our generous terms. Your 48 hours are up." Morrison sat down and placed his hands flat on the table. The room became completely quiet. Even the aliens who had been standing along the wall stopped moving. Everyone waited to hear the words that would end humanity's resistance. "The United Earth Federation has made its decision," Morrison said in a clear, loud voice that carried across the silent room. "We reject your terms." For a few seconds, nobody moved. The silence was so complete that Lisa could hear her own heartbeat. Then the room exploded into chaos. Aliens jumped up from their seats, making angry sounds that hurt the ears. The Vorthak representative's scales turned bright red with rage. The crystalline hegemon beings flashed with angry light. The Void Runners waved their tentacles wildly, and the shell builders made loud, clicking sounds with their claws. The Zephyrian ambassador slammed his heavy fist on the table, so hard that it cracked. "This is madness. Your fleets are scattered across the galaxy like broken toys. Your colonies are empty. Your people are running away. You have nothing left to fight with." Morrison stood up slowly. As he rose, something changed in his face. The tired, beaten look was gone. Instead, there was something cold and dangerous in his eyes. Several aliens near the front actually stepped back without thinking. "You are absolutely right," Morrison said with a smile that made Lisa's skin crawl. "We have nothing left to negotiate with. So we are not going to negotiate anymore." He turned toward the door, but the Vorthak delegate's angry voice stopped him. "You cannot just leave." "There are rules. There are proper ways to do things." Morrison stopped walking but did not turn around. "Your rules, your proper ways. We never agreed to follow them." He looked back over his shoulder. "This is our official notice. The ceasefire is over. You wanted to see what humans do when they are trapped in a corner. Now you will find out what we do when we stop pretending to be trapped." The room erupted again, but this time there was something different in the alien voices, mixed with the anger. There was now a sound that Lisa had never heard from them before. "Uncertainty. Captain, Steve Collins was waiting in the hallway outside the meeting room. He was a big man with short gray hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. When Morrison walked out, Collins fell into step beside him. "Sir, the evacuation team is ready. All human people are being moved out of neutral space," Collins reported quietly. "Good, send the signal to the fleet, Captain. Operation Prometheus starts now." As they walked down the long hallway, Lisa could still hear the angry voices from the meeting room behind them. The aliens were arguing with each other now, their voices getting louder and more confused. "Sir," Lisa said carefully, "what is Operation Prometheus?" Morrison looked at her with those cold eyes. "Something we have been planning for a very long time, Lieutenant Commander. Something that will teach the galaxy why you should never assume that retreat means surrender." They reached the human ship, a small diplomatic vessel that looked old and worn compared to the shiny alien ships around it. But as they climbed aboard, Lisa noticed something she had never seen before. The ship's communication equipment was much more advanced than it should be, and there were extra antenna arrays that definitely had not been there. When they arrived, Collins went straight to the communication station and began typing in a long series of codes. "Admiral, we have secure connection to Fleet Command. They are waiting for your orders." Morrison sat in the captain's chair and activated the communication system. The screen flickered to life, showing the face of a woman with short black hair and Admiral stars on her collar. "Admiral Walsh, this is Morrison. The talks have failed as expected. Begin Phase 1. The woman on the screen nodded. "Understood, Admiral. All task forces are in position. We will begin operations in 6 hours. "What about the civilian evacuations?" Morrison asked. "Complete, sir. The last transport ships left the outer colonies yesterday. All human civilians are now in safe zones." Morrison turned to Lisa, who was staring at the screen with wide eyes. "Lieutenant Commander, you look confused." "Sir, I thought our fleets were scattered and beaten. How can we have task forces in position for anything?" Morrison's cold smile returned. "That is exactly what we wanted everyone to think. For 3 years, we have been moving our people and ships while making it look like we were losing. Every retreat was planned. Every lost battle was on purpose. Every abandoned colony was evacuated before we left." Collins finished entering the codes and turned around. "Sir, all human ships have received the go signal. Operation Prometheus will begin in 5 hours and 57 minutes. Morrison stood up and walked to the window. Outside he could see the alien ships in the space station's docking area. They were beautiful vessels, sleek and powerful, with weapons that could destroy planets. But they were also completely unprepared for what was about to happen. "The galaxy is about to learn something important," Morrison said quietly. "Just because we choose not to fight does not mean we do not know how to win." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. She was starting to understand that everything she thought she knew about the war was wrong. The humans had not been losing. They had been preparing. "Sir, what happens now?" she asked. Morrison turned away from the window and looked at her. "Now, Lieutenant Commander, we show them what happens when you mistake human patience for human weakness." 3 days after the humans left the peace talks, the galaxy began to understand how badly they had been fooled. The first sign came from the outer rim, where space had seemed empty for months. Suddenly, a massive human fleet appeared out of nowhere, like ghosts becoming real. Fleet Admiral Karen Walsh stood on the bridge of the UES Leviathan, the biggest warship humanity had ever built. Around her ship, 200 other vessels moved in perfect formation. For 3 years, they had been hiding in the cold darkness between star systems supplied by hidden support ships that no one had ever detected. "Admiral, we are getting messages from the Kethmore Defense Fleet," said Commander Tony Martinez from his station. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly as he read the incoming signals. "They want to surrender. They are asking for time to move their civilian people to safety." Walsh nodded, but her face remained hard. The Kethmore had been some of the loudest voices during the peace talks, demanding that humans pay them tribute for 100 years. Their 12-world system was protected by huge space stations and thousands of defense ships. But the aliens had made one big mistake. They thought human tactics would never change. "Give them 6 hours to get their non-fighters out," Walsh ordered. "After that, we start destroying their military targets." The main screen showed the Kethmore homeworld getting bigger as they approached. The alien cities were made of crystal that sparkled like diamonds in the light of their twin suns. They were beautiful, but they were also completely undefended. The human fleet's stealth technology had let them slip past every alarm and defense system without being seen. On other ships in the fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Captain Danny Rogers commanded a group of 50 ships near the Vorthak border. His job was to take out their main military shipyard, a massive structure that had been building warships for 200 years. "Captain, the Vorthak are sending out distress calls to anyone who will listen," reported Lieutenant Beth Adams. "They are calling this an unprovoked attack," Rogers almost laughed. "Unprovoked? They spent 3 years shooting at us and then demanded we become their slaves. Tell me how that is unprovoked." Meanwhile, in the Zephyrian home system, Captain Alex Turner was leading an assault on their command center. The Zephyrians had always been proud of their military planning abilities, but they had never planned for this. Human ships appeared in their system like magic, striking targets before the aliens even knew they were there. "Sir, the Zephyrian fleet is trying to organize a defense," said his tactical officer. "But they are scattered across 6 different planets. It will take them hours to group together." "We will be done in 30 minutes, Turner replied. "Target their communication satellites first. If they cannot talk to each other, they cannot coordinate their response." Back on the Leviathan, Admiral Walsh received reports from all across the galaxy. Human fleets were attacking military targets in over 30 different systems all at the same time. The operation was so large and well coordinated that it seemed impossible. "Ma'am, we have a priority message from Admiral Morrison," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from the communications station. "The Galactic Council is demanding that we stop attacking immediately." Walsh's expression got even harder. "Tell them we will think about it when they are ready to discuss our terms." The bridge crew worked quietly and efficiently. These were not the actions of a desperate, dying species. This was the work of a military that had been planning and preparing for years. Every target had been chosen carefully. Every attack had been timed perfectly. Every ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission." "From the Plasma Weaver homeworld," reported Martinez. "They are asking what we want in exchange for stopping the attacks." "What we want?" Walsh said quietly. "We want them to understand that actions have consequences." They wanted to see humanity beg for mercy. Instead, they get to see what happens when we stop holding back. The truth was becoming clear across the galaxy. The human retreats had not been defeats, they had been repositioning. The abandoned colonies had not been lost, they had been evacuated. The scattered fleets had not been broken, they had been hiding. In the shell builder system, Captain Maria Santos was leading an attack on their manufacturing centers. The shell builders had bragged about their superior technology and their ability to build ships faster than humans. Now their factories were burning and their workers were fleeing in terror. "Captain, they are broadcasting on all frequencies," said her communications officer. "They want to know why we are doing this." Santos looked at the burning factories on her screen. "Tell them to ask the Galactic Council. They started this war. We are just finishing it." On the planet below, alien civilians watched in shock as human ships destroyed military targets with surgical precision. The humans were not attacking cities or killing innocent people. They were methodically destroying the alien military's ability to fight. The Void Runners tried to mount a counterattack, but their ships were designed for fighting in open space, not for defending against enemies that appeared without warning. Captain Nick Campbell's task force hit their main naval base before they could even sound the alarm. "Sir, the Void Runner Admiral is requesting a meeting," reported his first officer. "He says he wants to discuss terms." Campbell shook his head. Too late for that. They had their chance to discuss terms 3 days ago. Now they get to live with the consequences of their choices. Across the galaxy, the pattern was the same. Human fleets appeared as if from nowhere, struck their targets with devastating precision. and then moved on to the next objective. The aliens had expected a desperate last stand by a dying species. Instead, they were witnessing the most coordinated military operation in galactic history. Admiral Walsh looked at the tactical display showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked human fleet positions, and there were far more of them than anyone had imagined possible. The humans had not just been hiding a few ships, they had been hiding an entire second fleet. "Ma'am, we are getting surrender offers from 12 different species," Foster reported. "They all want to know what our terms are." Walsh smiled coldly. "Tell them they will find out soon enough. First, they need to understand that the galaxy has a new set of rules. And this time, we wrote them." The Galactic Council emergency meeting was complete chaos. Reports came in from every corner of the galaxy as human fleets appeared out of nowhere, hitting military targets with deadly accuracy. The size of the human operation was beyond anything anyone had imagined. It was clear that humanity had been planning this for many years, not just months. Ambassador Clickstar could not stay calm anymore. His forearms waved frantically as he spoke. "How is this even possible?" "Our spy networks told us their fleets were broken apart and their factories were destroyed." The big holographic display in the center of the room showed the military situation across the entire galaxy. Red dots marked where human fleets were attacking, and there were far more red dots than anyone had thought possible. The humans had not been running away from fights, they had been moving into attack positions. General Patricia Hughes was the only human left in the council chambers. She had stayed behind to watch what the aliens would do when they realized their mistake. Now she stood up and spoke for the first time in hours. "You made guesses based on wrong information," she said calmly. "Our retreats were planned movements to positions we had chosen ahead of time. Our abandoned colonies were emptied to save civilian lives while we got ready for this moment." She pointed to the display showing human attacks across the galaxy. "Every fight you thought you won was just us buying time. Every building you thought you destroyed was already planned to be blown up. You have been fighting shadows while we prepared to fight a real war." The snake-like Vorthak representative had turned pale green, which meant he was very scared. "This cannot be real. No species could organize such a trick across so many star systems." Hugh smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "You did not understand us because you thought we would fight like you do, with honor, following your rules, caring about your traditions? But we have been getting ready for this war since we first met other species in space. We studied every race in this council. We learned how you fight, what your weak points are, and how your cultures think. You thought you were dealing with a primitive species that was new to galactic politics. You were actually dealing with a species that has been fighting wars for thousands of years." The crystalline hegemon representative flickered with confused lights. "But your military seemed so weak. Your ships always ran away. Your colonies were always the first to be abandoned." "That was the point," Hughes replied. "We wanted you to think we were weak. We wanted you to believe we were cowards. We wanted you to get confident and careless. And it worked perfectly. On the display, more reports came in. Human forces had taken control of the Kethmore shipyards. The Zephyrian command center was offline. The Void Runner fleet was scattered and hiding. The shell builder manufacturing worlds were burning. The Plasma Weaver ambassador made a sound like breaking glass. Our intelligence services are the best in the galaxy. How did we miss something this big?" Hughes looked at him with pity. "Because you were looking for what you expected to see. You expected us to build big fleets and fight big battles. Instead, we built small, hidden fleets and fought a secret war. You were watching our military bases while we were building our ships in empty space between the stars." A new report came in that made several aliens gasp. Human forces had appeared in the Outer Rim territories that had been considered empty for decades. It turned out they had been full of human ships, supply bases, and manufacturing facilities that no one had detected. "For 3 years, you have been fighting about 1/3 of our actual military," Hughes continued. "The rest has been hiding, building, and preparing. Every time you destroyed one of our ships, we built 3 more in secret. Every time you took one of our bases, we had already moved everything important to a hidden location. The Void Runner. Captain waved his tentacles in distress. But the peace talks. You came to surrender. We came to give you one last chance to be reasonable, Hughes said. Admiral Morrison hoped that maybe, just maybe, you would offer fair terms that we could accept. Instead, you tried to make us into slaves. You demanded tribute. You wanted to control our expansion. You basically told us that humanity should exist only to serve the rest of the galaxy. She paused and looked around the room at all the frightened alien faces. What you did not understand is that humans do not make good slaves. We do not accept defeat when we have other choices, and we always have other choices. A new alarm sounded, and more reports flooded in. Human ships had appeared in the home systems of 6 more species. Each attack was perfectly timed and coordinated. The aliens were not just losing battles, they were losing the entire war in a matter of hours. "This is impossible," screamed the Kethamor representative. "How can you coordinate attacks across such vast distances?" Hughes smiled again. "We have been building a communication network for 30 years. Quantum transmitters hidden in asteroids, on dead moons in empty space. We can send messages instantly across the entire galaxy. You have been using old-fashioned radio signals that take years to cross space. We have been planning this operation in real time." The truth was sinking in for all the aliens in the room. Humanity had not just been hiding ships and weapons. They had been building an entire secret infrastructure across the galaxy. Communication networks, supply lines, hidden bases, manufacturing facilities, all of it invisible to alien detection methods. "How long have you been planning this?" asked the Zephyrian ambassador quietly. "Since the day we first met another intelligent species," Hughes replied. "We learned from our own history. On Earth, the civilizations that survived were the ones that prepared for war while hoping for peace. We applied that same logic to galactic politics. The display showed the final count of human forces that had revealed themselves. Over 800 ships attacking targets in 43 different systems, all moving with perfect coordination. It was the largest military operation in galactic history, and it had been planned and prepared in complete secrecy. "You wanted to see what humans do when we are desperate," Hughes said as she prepared to leave. "Instead, you got to see what we do when we are prepared? There's a very big difference." As she walked toward the exit, the alien representatives sat in stunned silence. They had poked what they thought was a dying animal, only to discover they had awakened something much more dangerous than they had ever imagined. 6 months after the failed peace talks, the galaxy had changed completely. The human attack had lasted only 3 weeks, but in that short time, they had destroyed the military power of every species that had demanded their surrender. Now the galaxy had a new order, and humanity was in charge. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers, but everything looked different now. The seating arrangement had been changed completely. The human delegation sat in the center of the room, with all the other species arranged in a circle around them. There was no doubt about who was in control now. "The terms are simple," Morrison announced to the gathered representatives. "Complete removal of all weapons from every species that gave us the ultimatum. Payment for the 3 years of war that you started. And human peacekeeping forces will be stationed in all disputed territories." The former Ambassador Clickstar, now speaking for a much smaller Zephyrian delegation, raised one of his 4 arms. It shook as he spoke. "These terms are very harsh. Our people will have trouble living under such restrictions." Morrison's face showed no emotion. "They are exactly the same terms you offered us, with one difference: we are not asking for tribute payments. We are not interested in ruling over you. We are interested in making sure this never happens again." Captain Lisa Parker had been promoted to admiral and now served as Morrison's second-in-command. She stepped forward to address the aliens. "The human fleet will keep peace in the galaxy for the next 50 years. During this time, any species that wants to rebuild their military can do so, but only with human watching and approval." She stopped talking and let the meaning of her words sink in. We are not conquering you, we are civilizing you. There is a difference. The room was much quieter than it had been 6 months ago. The aliens who had once been loud and demanding now spoke in whispers. Many of them looked at the floor instead of meeting human eyes. The change in their behavior was complete. Admiral Karen Walsh entered the chamber with a report in her hands. She had been promoted to head of Galactic Peacekeeping Operations. Admiral Morrison, I have the monthly status report. All former hostile species are complying with the disarmament treaties. We have had no incidents of violence in the past 60 days. Morrison nodded. What about the reconstruction efforts? Proceeding on schedule. We have rebuilt the civilian infrastructure on 12 worlds that were damaged during the war. The Kethmer crystal cities are more beautiful than ever, and their people seem grateful for our help. This was another part of the human strategy that had surprised the aliens. After destroying their military capabilities, the humans had immediately begun helping rebuild civilian facilities. Hospitals, schools, transportation systems, all rebuilt with human technology and human labor. The Vorthek representative, his scales now a healthy green color, spoke up carefully. Admiral Morrison, our people would like to thank humanity for the medical supplies you sent during the plague outbreak. Many lives were saved. Morrison's expression softened slightly. We told you we were not interested in ruling you. We meant it. We want all species to prosper, but we also want peace. Admiral Steve Collins, now in charge of the human patrol fleets, added his own report. Sir, the trade routes are completely safe now. Piracy has dropped to 0. Commercial shipping between species has increased by 300%. This was something no one had expected. With human fleets patrolling the galaxy and ensuring peace, trade between different species had exploded. Worlds that had been enemies 6 months ago were now trading partners. The galaxy was becoming more prosperous than it had ever been. There is one more thing, Morrison said, looking around the room. We have been monitoring communications between your homeworlds. We know that some of you have been talking about the lessons you learned from this war. Several alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had indeed been talking, and most of those conversations had been about how badly they had misjudged humanity. We are pleased to hear that you understand why this happened, Morrison continued. It happened because you mistook our desire for peace as weakness. You thought that because we tried to avoid war, we did not know how to fight. You learned that this was a dangerous mistake. The crystalline hegemon representative flickered with dim lights. Admiral, our children are now taught in school about the importance of understanding other species before making judgments. We call it the human lesson, Morrison almost smiled. That is wise. Understanding should always come before action. Admiral Hughes, who had been watching the proceedings quietly, stood up. If I may, Admiral Morrison, I would like to address something that has been in many of our reports. Morrison nodded for her to continue. Several species have asked about joining human peacekeeping operations. They want to help maintain the peace we have established. I recommend we consider these requests carefully. This was perhaps the most surprising development of all. Species that had been humanity's enemies 6 months ago now wanted to work with them to keep the galaxy peaceful. The human approach of strength combined with mercy had won them respect rather than just fear. We will consider all applications, Morrison said. But remember, peacekeeping requires wisdom, patience, and the ability to use force only when necessary. These are not easy qualities to learn. As the meeting ended, Morrison looked around the chamber one final time. The aliens filed out quietly, many of them stopping to thank human representatives for various assistance programs. The change in their attitudes was remarkable. Lisa Parker approached Morrison as the room emptied. Sir, do you think the peace will last? Morrison looked at her thoughtfully. Lisa, peace never lasts forever. But what we have taught the galaxy is that starting a war with humanity is a very bad idea. That lesson should keep the peace for a long time. Outside the chamber, alien children played in the corridors while their parents attended meetings. Human soldiers stood guard, but they were more like friendly protectors than occupying forces. The galaxy had learned that humans could be the most dangerous enemies or the most helpful allies. The age of human leadership had begun not through conquest, but through the simple act of walking away from a table where they were not respected. Sometimes the most powerful thing a species could do was to stop talking and start acting. The galaxy would remember this lesson for many generations to come.